high energy, there we go. Hi, my name is Casey Given. I'm the Executive Director of Young Voices. Young Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit. We help young libertarians like yourself get published. So we connect the best young future thought leaders interested in academia, journalism, publishing, policy, and help get them into the media, primarily through op-eds. That's kind of our specialty, but we also are trying to branch out into other mediums like video, radio, TV, hence why we invited Julie here to kind of branch out and not just talk about writing. But I encourage you to check out our website, youngvoicesadvocates.com. And before we kind of go on to the panel, Jumpstart Your Career as a Libertarian Writer, I want to pass out two sheets just to float around. One is kind of an information sheet about Young Voices, kind of explaining in detail more what we do. And the second one, since this is the Students for Liberty Conference, I want to talk about our program for students called our Campus Pundit Program, where we are actually paying students for successfully publishing an op-ed in your student newspaper. So this is a great way. Right now our award is $50, but I think we're going to raise it actually to $75 or $100. So look out for that next week. But what you do is you write a short article, 600 to 800 words, on any topic related to liberty in your school, and send it to Young Voices. We help edit it. We go through our editing process with you. And if you get it successfully published in your student newspaper or local publication, we will give you money. So it's a great way to get rewarded for your writing. So I'll pass these out. Feel free to take one. If not, pass it along. I won't be offended. Great. Well, wonderful. So this is our panel, Jumpstart Your Career as a Libertarian Writer. And I would like to introduce our guests. I forgot to ask them for their bios, but I know them all each, so I'll just go. This is Sam Dunkovich. He is a student at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, studying political science. He is one of our Young Voices advocates. He's been with us for about a year now, so he will be talking about just kind of generally Young Voices and kind of tips for aspiring writers and how to get involved as a student writer. Next is Natalie Lee. She is are you still in school, senior or recent graduate?
I'm a graduate student.
Yeah, okay, great. So she is a graduate of the University of, but where'd you graduate? South Carolina,
Yeah,
right?
College Charleston.
College of Charleston, and now she attends school at Harvard. She's a master's student in government at Harvard. And then next to her is Stacy Ndlovu, who is Young Voices managing editor. She is a recent graduate of Cornell. So we got a prestigious panel. I'm a Berkeley man myself. Oh, Lord. And Stacy has been a Young Voices managing editor for almost a year now, so she'll give some advice on kind of writing from the editor's perspective about kind of common mistakes that young writers make and kind of how to do that. And then, of course, the woman who needs no introduction, Julie Borowski, who is formerly of FreedomWorks, now on her own, does tons of great video viral content, and she will be talking about more on the video, kind of building your own brand through video and social media. Well, great. So I'll turn it over to each of them. We'll go down the line, just do some brief remarks, although I gave Julie more time. And then we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. So we'll start with Sam.
Okay, hi guys. So I just thought of a few points of tips that I could give all of you. The first one is most of you are college students, so time is very valuable. I'm a communications minor, so I write quite a bit because it's my classes. So my first tip is make time for it. It sounds kind of silly because news is constant, but I usually schedule when I'm going to write stuff because otherwise it never happens because I'll just replace it with homework or going out or sleeping and taking naps. But yeah, just making time for it. And then basically choose subjects you care about. If you don't like subjects you're talking about, you're not going to want to write in the first place. I write mostly on like environmental stuff, like biotech, LGBT issues, and drug policy. Also, choosing subjects you care about shows people that you're passionate. People like those ones more because you actually seem like you care. Actually have one article that I was asked to write by an LGBT site, and it was really funny. It posted an article on Hillary Clinton and why she was an LGBT hero, and I complained and said she wasn't, and they asked me to write an op-ed, and that's pretty rare because they're pretty leftist usually. So I got to bash Hillary Clinton on an article on why she is horrible for LGBT rights because she supports Saudi Arabia and stuff. But yeah, so stuff like that happens sometimes. The latest thing I wrote was on the FDA and their blood ban and how it's still a thing. That actually, I wrote it last year, but I thought it was still relevant, so I re-edited it and then submitted it, and it was published in the Hill. So stuff like that. I mean, yeah. And also, when I first started writing, I had no experience with writing. I'm horrible with grammar. And my edits for the first article there's a lot of them. So if you ever start writing and you get a lot of edits, don't feel bad because it's normal. You always have edits. No one's perfect, especially if you're just starting out. That's all I really had for my tips.
Hello. Okay. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. Last semester I graduated from College Charleston, and it was at College Charleston where I do a lot of free speech activism through Young Americans for Liberty. And that's the one I learned the most and make the most mistakes, especially when it comes to writing, because before I got into the free speech activism, I don't really have a sophisticated knowledge for free speech other than like hate speech, free speech, but of course you cannot really win people like that. And so, but yeah, so when I got involved with Young Americans for Liberty, and one of the big topics was free speech. So me and a couple others, like Thomas there, we hosted like a free speech ball on campus, and it just to get word out, educating students on their First Amendment rights. But although we do this in person, we want to explore in other mediums to get the word out. So one of those is me writing op-eds about free speech. And I have published op-eds about College of Charleston getting a red light from fire, meaning that their speech codes are not in line with the First Amendment. And of course this is an issue because College of Charleston is a public institution, so under the title, so under the First Amendment of the Constitution, they have to follow the constitutional rights. So when it comes to writing op-eds, especially about free speech, and I just want to pick free speech because that's the one that we're going to be focusing on. So when you write an op-ed, the first thing is what happened, right? Because a lot of problems, problems with writers is that they get really heated when it comes to like a certain issue, so they just kind of like ranting on and on, right? And it's like no, because like you're writing for an audience, so you have the first paragraph should be like what happened, right? What happened, the incident, and then the second would be like what is First Amendment, right? Because we all know that First Amendment is like your right to free speech, your right to religion and whatnot, but you still have to write for an audience, like assuming that they don't know what it is. So, so like what is the First Amendment? And then another thing is it also helps to solidify your op-ed when you talk about a case like a Davis versus Roe, right? Because this is the one that I didn't know, but yes, free speech is your right to say what you want to say, but there's a limit, right? So so for universities, they have speech like, okay, so you can say what you want to say, but it cannot fall into harassment. So harassment is basically is so severe, so pervasive that it actually prevents people like gaining access to educational opportunities. So that's a one like I didn't know before I got into free speech activism. And I had to learn through a trial and error when talking to the students, and I looked stupid in front of her when she's like, oh, you know that Davis and Monroe, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, right? So, but you just kind of have to own up to your mistakes and move on. And then it also helps in your op-ed to mention other examples of suppressed free speech incidents. So for example, at Emory, someone wrote Trump 2016, and that really triggers students, right? And they even reported to the administrator saying that he feared for his life, right? And so that helps it to bring examples of other free speech incidents, and why it's important to be open to intellectual discourse, especially those that are different from your thoughts and opinions. And then now, yeah, you go on saying that, free speech, it's all right to say what we want to say, right? But then in the end of the op-ed, you should say the solution. So what can we do about this, right? Because think about it, because administrators, if they were to change the speech codes, I mean, you got to convince them, because how do you feel when someone run up to me and call me chink, go back to China? How would I feel, right? So for a solution in the op-ed is to say, for me, for example, in my op-ed, I said, host a diversity conference or educational conference that people are more than welcome to attend, and one of the panels would be a person who's an expert on diversity and another expert who's on free speech. So that way it could be an intellectual discourse, and it really promotes the message of tolerance, right? So make sure you pose a solution in your op-ed, because you can all rant all you want. You can be like, oh, this happened, that happened, but you got to make a point in the op-ed. Let's see, and yeah, that's all I have to say about how to write about free speech in an op-ed format.
Thank you, Natalie. You kind of talked about some of what I was going to mention. So I'm Stacy once again, and I'm the managing editor at Young Voices. And I'm just going to talk about generally what makes a compelling op-ed and what not to do if you're trying to write an op-ed and reach a wider audience. So what I have as a golden rule is just that it's not about you, it's about the audience. So if you remember that, then you've already done most of the work to become a really great writer. So what I mean by it's not about you, of course you're the one who's writing it, so you obviously have an interest in the topic that you're writing about, but you should be thinking about who it is that you want to reach with your op-ed, so that affects the tone that you're going to be using when you're writing it, and that also affects how long it's going to be. That affects a lot of different things that you have to think about when you're writing the op-ed. So thinking about the audience is very important just when you're writing, and it also helps you not to sort of write rants. And you think you care so much about something, and then you write it as a rant, but then it's not engaging to somebody, and it's not something that an editor would want to be published for their audience, because they know that it's not written in a way that it coheres as a piece of journalism. So still thinking about the audience, a major question you should be asking yourself when you're thinking about writing is, what is the point that you're trying to make? So you choose your topic, and then you decide what's the point that you're trying to make. So a major issue that I find in editing is that a lot of writers don't make their point until the conclusion. So you have an entire op-ed that's not saying anything, and then right at the last moment, you make your point. That's something that I also struggled with in college. For instance, I wrote a thesis that was 80 pages long, and before I submitted it, my thesis advisor said, before you give me that to read, take your conclusion and make your introduction. And I said, why? She's like, I'm pretty sure if you read it right now, your introduction has nothing to do with your thesis. And I went back, and she was right. My introduction had nothing to do with my thesis. So I had 80 pages, but the first part of it had nothing to do with my thesis. So I moved my conclusion to the front, and that was more effective. So what I do when I'm editing is read the intro and then read the conclusion. Usually there's no connection whatsoever. And a lot of people get frustrated with me because one of the first things I do in an edit is move the conclusion to the top. And this is your thesis. This is what should be guiding your entire op-ed. So the point you're trying to make it as quickly as possible, as soon as possible. Don't wait until the conclusion or until the third paragraph to make your point when you're writing an op-ed. And speaking of that, just making your point as soon as possible. I think what you should remember is that people have very short attention spans right now. So, for example, Facebook will, if you have a video ad on Facebook, Facebook will charge you for a view if somebody has watched the video for 3 seconds. So 3 seconds is a view that you get charged for. That tells you just how short people's attention spans are. So if you're ranting on and not making a point, no one is going to read your op-ed to the very end, because you need to be clear right at the beginning, what is it that I want people to know, because they're not going to read the whole thing if you're not making your point clear as quickly as possible. Another thing is that relevant are very broad. So you say something like, many people don't like Nickelback. And that might seem intuitive to you and the people that you know, but then that's not very effective if you're writing an op-ed. So what you're supposed to be, you could say, a study found that many people don't like Nickelback, but that's still not specific enough. So if you're writing an op-ed, make sure you have evidence and you're not just stating your opinion about Nickelback and your friends and your friend group. So they could say, a study from the University of Liberty found that 67% of people between the ages of 18 and 24 don't like Nickelback. That's a better way to write an op-ed than just say many people don't like Nickelback. So anyway, just think about that, your evidence, and not making broad claims that are not supported by evidence, and not going deep into, at least giving enough detail about a study so that somebody actually knows where the study is coming from, what does this data say, and how are you going to interpret it, and how are you going to use it to make your argument. So that's something that's important as well in op-ed writing. And another thing that I find is that people, so let's say you're an econ major and you really understand econ and you're writing something to do with economics policy issue as an op-ed, and you forget that people are not you, they don't have as much detail on the topic as you have. So just making sure that you keep the audience in mind and make sure that something that's very technical that only an econ major would understand immediately, you explain it, or you use a common term that everybody else uses. And speaking of just technical terms or insider language, another common problem with libertarian writers is that they like to say a lot, as a libertarian, I believe this. That's fine if you're writing for fee, for example, you can write that. But then if you're trying to write for a wider audience, if you say as a libertarian, you've already pigeonholed yourself without having made an argument. So letting the facts speak for themselves, letting your argument stand for itself is very important if you're trying to reach a wider audience. So make sure you make the argument. Don't use the L word unless if you're writing specifically for a libertarian audience, but if you're trying to reach a wider audience, just let the facts speak for themselves. So we will have questions afterwards.
I'm the managing editor of fee, and that doesn't even apply for fee.
Okay. Thank you. And what else did I have? All right, another thing is that being very specific. For instance, you want to write about Donald Trump, and then you write something like, Donald Trump is like Peter Keating from The Fountainhead. That works for fee. But if you're trying to read a broader audience, then you can't be sure that everybody has read The Fountainhead or know what that means, that he's like Peter Keating. So making sure that sort of some of the libertarian insider comparisons, you keep them to a minimum if you're trying to make a broader argument. That works as well, depending on who you're trying to reach. And just in terms of grammar, I guess there are a few things that occur all the time, like people using am dashes instead of commas. I remember my first day, Casey said to me, am dashes are often a comma's unnecessary cousin. So a lot of times people use am dashes instead of commas when a comma would work. And same thing with semicolons. Usually you can just use a period and then write another sentence. So it's just keeping that to a minimum as well. And trying to figure out, and also learning how to use which versus that. That's just something that writers get mixed up. So that's sort of the few common mistakes that come. And then, of course, putting punctuation inside quotation marks instead of outside quotation marks. So that's another common grammar mistake that comes across in a lot of young writers' writing. Yeah, so I think generally that's the advice that I have, and I just wait for your questions later on. So.
Hey everybody. So this is my 8th International Students for Liberty Conference. My first conference, I was 21 years old, a college student, and I was so intimidated. I met people from Harvard and Berkeley. I went to Frostburg State University. Our biggest claim to fame is one year we made Playboy's top 10 party school list, and I think that was in the 90s. So I was really intimidated, and I suck at networking. At these networking events, I felt like every time I talked to somebody, they were just kind of looking over my shoulder, like looking for somebody more important than this little girl who they were talking to. So I went home and I was like, I'm never going to work in the libertarian movement. Come on, I'm unqualified, I can't do this. I majored in political science. My junior year, I applied to pretty much every single libertarian organization on the face of the earth, and I got rejected. I have so many Cato rejections. I'm thinking of framing those emails because every single email came back. We had really the unusually competitive field this year, and they sent that email every single season, so I knew that was a lie. But Reason rejected me, all these people just rejected me. I was kind of feeling like self-doubt, like, come on, Julie, who the hell do you think you are? But eventually, I applied to FreedomWorks, and they didn't get back to me. So I sent them an email, just, hey, just checking up, looking forward to hearing from you. And finally, they got back to me, and I had a phone interview, and they hired me for an internship. So I did that. I did my internship, and then I left, did another internship at Americans for Tax Reform. And during that internship, I sent my former boss a handwritten letter to thank him. And I think that was how I got that job, because my boss came up to me afterwards and said, hey, would you want to work at FreedomWorks? So handwritten letters are very, very good because it's very rare to get one in this day and age. So I did. I worked at FreedomWorks. I was a staff writer behind the scenes doing a lot of ghost writing, that kind of thing. And my boss approached me. He was a regular on TV, and this news organization wanted him to go on to talk about Ron Paul, who announced he was running. This was 2011. He said, Julie, do you want to take my place on TV? And I said, are you freaking serious? I had never done an interview at all, let alone, this was on live national TV. I was like, oh my God, my biggest fear, TMI, but that I was going to get diarrhea on TV, because that's a real thing that happens to people. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. Well, my boss asked the producer if they would take me instead, and the producer said, well, do you have like any videos of her? And I didn't. So the producer said, thanks, but we'll pass. And at that moment, I realized that I was going to have to do videos, or, I was going to have to do public speaking, which terrified me. When I was in high school, when we were supposed to do public speaking, I faked sick. I said, I lost my voice, I have laryngitis, I can't do it. So I was terrified of public speaking. I was a writer, I was behind the scenes, I didn't expect me, but I was like, okay, you're going to have to advance your career. You have to do this. So I started a YouTube channel. 2011, just talking about Ron Paul, libertarian stuff, things that I wanted to be interviewed on. And I didn't expect it to go anywhere. I didn't even tell anybody that I knew. My boss had no idea. Nobody at work had any idea. It wasn't until a little bit later that I had a viral video. I did a parody of Lena Dunham, who did this ad for Obama comparing voting for him to losing her virginity, and it got like almost 400,000 views, and all of a sudden people knew about my channel. So that was crazy, but people ask me, how do you start a YouTube channel? You just do. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a tripod. I stacked a bunch of books on top of my hamper. I had a cheap, maybe $100 flip camera, and I just went at it. And yeah, my videos sucked. because it's really awkward when you're just sitting in your room talking to a camera about your opinions and posting them online for God knows who to see. It's awkward, but eventually over time you start getting used to it and you start learning how to do it, and it was kind of practice for me to practice my speeching, to practice being criticized, which on YouTube there's a lot of criticism. But I kind of want to talk about, how people ask me, how do you deal with haters? Well, if you put yourself out there, you're going to get haters no matter what. And what I learned is that the more views that I got, the more people who knew who I was, the more haters that I got. So I was like, okay, this is actually a good sign that you're getting haters. Because in the beginning, the first couple of videos, most people were like, oh yeah, go Ron Paul, that's cool. But as my videos got more views, I got more people trying to bash me. I was like, okay, this is actually a sign that I'm doing the right thing. And it's also just, people say, haters are just jealous of me and stuff like that. But there's actually a lot of constructive criticism that they give you. It's rare, very rare, that you get an honest opinion of yourself. Most people, they just sugarcoat things for you. All of a sudden, I had to look at myself from a different point of view, and just all this criticism was coming at me, and I tried to use it to improve myself. People would say things about my speech habits and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I need to do this, try to get better. So it was actually a good thing that I got honest feedback so I could learn how to improve myself. Because these were things that people were thinking, but they were actually telling me, which I never really got before. I learned a couple things that people love to be entertained. They love comedy. My first couple videos were pretty serious, and then I kind of just went more and more wacky. I started watching YouTube videos from Jenna Marbles and these people who are doing YouTube videos, not politics, but they were making these crazy videos that people were watching, millions and millions of people, and I was like, okay, this is what actually makes a good YouTube video. It's not just somebody ranting to their camera, it's people being wacky, and I introduced costumes and stuff like that, and people were like, hey, this is cool, this is cool. I was like, okay, I'm getting something there, so it's okay to show your personality. At first I thought, well, I'm a libertarian commentator, I have to be super serious and talk about these philosophers and these books and stuff like that if I want people to take me seriously. But I realized that, it's good to use comedy to actually show your personality and to talk about current events. Especially online, there's a new outrage every single day. And if you tap into that outrage at the right moment, you have potential of your video going viral. It doesn't matter who you are, if you have any subscribers whatsoever. People were pissed off online. If you can tap into that, there you go. A couple viral-ish videos that I've done is they had this video of these little girls dropping F-bombs for feminism from this group called F-Hate. And so many people were pissed off. These girls, they're 5, 6 years old, F this, F that. And people were outraged, but they weren't really doing anything about it. They were just being outraged. And so I did a parody of that, and I had the perfect timing that right after the outrage was in its prime, I posted this video doing a parody, dressed up as a princess, and that went viral. So I learned to tap into that outrage. Another one that I've done more recently is MTV had this video called Hate White Guys, and everyone was pissed off about it, so I did a parody of that, talk about how it was stupid and how these liberals were not really paying attention to the lessons of the election, and so I did that, and I think it's got over 200,000 views, so that was more than my usual thing. So as soon as people are mad about something, current events, outrage, post your opinion. And I think it's really important not just to be an entertainer, not just to post stupid videos, but actually to have a point behind it. Actually, education and comedy, which can be hard. Some things are not very funny, and sometimes people are like, that wasn't funny, but I don't care because it made me laugh. So I try to juggle it, and sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, but that's what I've kind of learned. Next is that people have to like you as a person to actually watch you. People think, oh, it's just about the ideas. No, it's about you. People all of a sudden they see you, and within the first couple seconds they decide if they like you or not. So it's important to be a likable, personable personable person, and actually interact with your audience. People tell me that, hey, it's cool that you actually respond to comments and stuff like that. So I try to do that a lot, and it's really me. I respond. Like, I don't have anybody else running my social media. Sometimes people will message me and say, hey, Julie Borowski team. I'm like, I don't have a team. It's me. So, you know, interact with people, respond to their questions. People like to be asked questions on my Facebook page because people love to express their opinions, so I do that. Also, something to consider is your privacy. Clearly, a lot of people get really, really angry about politics. So I think it's good to protect yourself. You know, don't put out your address and stuff like that. But just be careful about that kind of stuff because doxing is a real thing that can happen. So, you know, be aware of that. The next thing I want to talk about is something that a lot of people are interested about is money. How can you make money from this thing? If you think, oh, I'm going to post videos and I'm going to become a millionaire, no, you're not. It can be a struggle to make money in the libertarian movement, but it's possible. So I'm a freelancer, so I do this all by myself. One way is donations. This really makes me uncomfortable because I hate asking for donations. I feel like I'm just begging. So I don't do that much, but some people do. You can get sponsors, you can get advertisers. This is good. You know, obviously advertisers usually have a lot of money. But the problem with that I've encountered is that, you know, a lot of advertisers try to control you a bit. I had an advertiser who pulled out from my agreement with me because of my abortion views, because I was being controversial about that. They didn't like that. So you kind of have to be careful about that with advertisers, that they may not want you saying something controversial because it won't reflect upon them. The one that I do, and I've done this a lot recently that has worked, is affiliate programs. There's a lot of places with affiliate programs. Basically, you're an advertiser, and if you post the affiliate link and people buy, you get a percentage of that sale. So I do things like you may see on my Facebook page from like Libertarian Country, who does t-shirts, Liberty Maniacs, who does t-shirts and stuff like that. Libertarian t-shirts, when people buy from my link, I get a percentage, like 15% of the sale. The thing about that is that they're not controlling my work, and that I get percentage of that sale, and it's actually something that my audience likes. So I wouldn't promote anything that I didn't think people would like. People are buying t-shirts because they're libertarian t-shirts, and I can get a percentage of that. Other ways is just articles. People will pay you for that sometimes. Speaking events, you can get a fee of that. Well, what I want you to be aware of, and this is something that's very, very strange that I've encountered, is that there are some libertarians who hate when libertarians make money. I don't understand this. They think that you should promote liberty out of the goodness of your heart. And if you're starving, you can't pay your rent, that's okay because you're promoting liberty. Well, it's like, okay, I thought we were capitalists, guys. That kind of used to bother me at first because I was like, I don't want anybody to think I'm just doing this for money. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, I have so many other opportunities. Hello? I have so many other opportunities to make money.
We can get another mic.
Okay.
Just a sec.
So it used to bother me when people would get on me for making money off of this, but I'm like, I have other opportunities to make money. I can go get another job. I don't have to do this. So I'm kind of becoming more unashamed about it. And when I post links, I say, yeah, I'm making money off of this because I'm a capitalist. There's nothing wrong with making money, and I think libertarians, especially who are capitalists, should understand that. So what I've noticed is that people like disclosure, though. You know, don't promote a product and say, hey, this is the best product ever, and not say, hey, I'm actually an affiliate. So I think being honest, having disclosure, people like that. So I guess we'll take any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like it's not the microphone, it's the speaker, by the way. I think it's that one went out, might have been.
That one?
Or, yeah, this one's working. That one went out, so you might want to check that. Yeah. Yeah, if you can check that, and I can do Phil Donahue style and go throughout the audience and give you the microphone. So great, we have plenty of time for questions, about 25 minutes. So I'm going to go around. Please do use the microphone. We're broadcasting live both from Young Voices and Students for Liberty, so our online audience can hear it. Please, I'll hand you the microphone. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, okay. We'll start with you, sir.
Hi, my name is Mikey. What's the way that you guys get motivated to write? Because I have a lot of problems with being motivated to get either a blog post done or a book done or something. How do you get yourself on track?
I guess I'll have to be a runner. Anyone have an answer?
I guess what I do is I get angry about certain issues, and I see certain views never being expressed, so those are usually what I go for. Like, LGBT issues are always on the left side. You never hear like libertarian perspective in the mainstream, or like GMO through Zika virus that was going around, as you all know. And there's a lot of hate on genetically modified like mosquitoes, and they could be Zika resistant. People were saying like, oh, they're spreading Zika, like conspiracy theories crap. And no one was writing about how this was happening, so I wrote about it and just let my anger create articles, yeah.
I think it's just a matter of just do it. Because like there's just so many motivational juice that you can run on, but it'll run out eventually. So I think this kind of like stems into discipline, just doing it, right? Yeah, don't try to like listen to an inner voice saying, no, don't do it, right? Don't listen to it. Just go ahead, do it. See. Yeah, it's out of creating habit. Yeah, you just have to like create the habit of like, if there's something that you're interested in writing about, just pull up Word doc or get out a piece of paper and just start writing. It doesn't have to be like have to be in a coherent order. Just whatever comes to your mind, just put on paper, and then you can just organize it later.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. But I also am motivated by anger. So I'm from Zimbabwe, so as an African woman, I have a lot of things to be angry about, so I always add material. But so I think anger is a good one to motivate you. But I also find that a problem is that you're trying to get your first draft to be perfect. So that prevents you from writing. So you should just separate the two processes. So writing versus editing. So when you get an idea, which I'm pretty sure you get ideas all the time. It's in the shower, in the metro, whatever. So just write. Don't be thinking about making it perfect, because the first draft, it's only you who's gonna see it. So whether you have spelling mistakes or you realize later that, oh, maybe this paragraph doesn't work, but just making sure when you get the idea, you write whatever it is you have from what you have knowledge of, and then you supplement your knowledge by going outside and looking for things to make your argument stronger, or maybe you realize that your argument is not supported by facts, but just write. And then after you've done the creative process, then you work on the editing. So sort of trying to edit as you're writing prevents you from, in my experience, also my opinion, it prevents you from moving forward. So yeah, just write is what I would say as well.
I guess the same things, passion and anger. I carry a notebook everywhere I go, and you can see I just jot down notes whenever I get an idea, and it's really sloppy and it makes no sense to anyone who's other besides me. But also, you don't have to push things. If you're just like, oh, I kind of want to write about this, but I don't know. Sometimes another day to think about it is what it really counts, because I'll get an idea later. I'm like, hey, that's actually better than the idea I had yesterday. So just don't push it.
Cool, wonderful. Well, our speakers are cooperating, at least for now, and we have a mic runner now, so I will point, how about right there, sir?
Hi, I'm Max. For the writers, especially, what media, what's mostly social media, I guess, but what are the ways you get your writing out for popularity for it, so you get more views and more people are talking about you.
Anyone? No takers?
So the question is, which social media do you use?
Yeah, so what type of social media? Yeah, at least, I mean, I can take this one. At least at Young Voices, we try to go on a number of different mediums. Of course, there's Facebook, and especially in the writing world, Twitter is huge. So that's always a big one, and probably the hardest social media to build up a following. But in terms of getting clicks to articles, Twitter is huge. But increasingly now, especially kind of in the age of oversaturation on the internet, where it's just pure competition to try to get attention, a lot of writers are actually turning more to video as well. Going live, going live on Periscope or Facebook Live. Also other mediums like podcasts or whatnot, actually kind of video audio. It sounds kind of contradictory, especially if you're a writer, but spreading your message, talking about your articles and in kind of a visual or audio format is also a good way to build up your brand. Yeah, did anyone else have any additions?
I really like Reddit. Yeah, like when you write about op-eds, put on Reddit, and people are very vocal about their opinions. So, of course, it's kind of opened up to criticism, but as a writer, you grow through criticism. So, I really like Reddit.
Also, getting your friends to share it, because of Facebook's algorithm, where it's just friends. They don't do the friends and family is people who are going to see it. So, getting other people as well to share your work, so that it's not just your friends or your family who are seeing it. And another thing that works is what you wrote is related to something that's trending, you can use the exact words that is of the thing that's trending, and then that puts your article as part of the aggregated stuff that would be under that trend. So just trying to play around with and take advantage of the algorithm without having to pay for it, that works as well on Facebook. But also getting people to share it, that works too. And tagging. So if you get published in whatever outlet it is, if you add them on Facebook, your affiliation, your what is it, affinity score? I don't know what they call it. That gets higher between that and that publication or that person that you're tagging, and the people in your network as well. So yeah, I guess just basically look more into how to get how to go around the Facebook algorithm to get people to read your stuff without having to pay for it. That works too.
Okay, other questions? How about you right here?
So I have this dilemma where I'm really shy, but if anybody knows me on a personal level, I'm heavily opinionated. And so I want to get to the transition where I can actually be publicly opinionated rather than privately opinionated. What would you recommend?
Good one. Did you want to say something, Julie?
I'm an extremely introverted person. People do not think that. They think I'm an extremely extroverted and very annoying person. In real life, I'm actually not. I'm actually pretty calm and quiet sometimes if I don't know you. I think you kind of, I don't want to say be a fake person, but kind of realize that this is an act, this is a persona. That's how I kind of treat my YouTube channel. I will not act like that in a social situation. But however, I understand that in video, people want to be entertained. They want somebody who's a little crazy and who really says really outspoken things. So I've kind of learned, I'm kind of an actress in a way, online video. And I think most people who do videos are, I think people you see on TV, they probably don't act that opinionated and argumentative in real life. So I say just kind of an act, just kind of suck it up, and hopefully it works.
Okay. Yes, right up front.
Hi, excuse me, my name is Abby, and I had a question about mistakes. So obviously we're all human, we're all going to make mistakes, and one of my biggest fears when talking to people, and something that's kind of preventing me from putting myself out there a little bit more, is this fear that I'm going to get something wrong, or I'm going to say something that actually backfires and ends up hurting the cause that I'm trying to promote. So my question for you was, A, how do you overcome this fear and kind of work past it, and B, what do you do when you do make a mistake? How do you fix it?
Great question.
Ooh, yeah, tough one. Anyone have anything come to mind? Sure.
Well, I made a mistake a few minutes ago, about 20 minutes ago, when I was talking about Libertarian and saying as a Libertarian that might work for a publication that caters largely to Libertarian people, and I said like FEE, and I was called out by the managing editor of FEE right here on Facebook Live. So, you know, I am going to go and introduce myself to him. Is it Dan? Yes, we've talked by email, but we haven't met yet, and I'm going to apologize. Well, I'm apologizing right now, and I'm very embarrassed right now. It's just, you know, and I wanted to die when I realized the mistake I had made, but so I get that. Like, you don't want to make a mistake, especially be called out right on the mistake right like that. But I think that you just need to own up and realize that you've made a mistake, and just sort of apologize, be humble if you've made a mistake and learn from it. So I think humility goes a long way in making mistakes, and also just not letting that fear of making a mistake actually prevent you from writing, from like approaching a subject. So I wrote something on a lot of environmental activists in the West have been they have been very much against sending used clothing to Africa. So, you know, they're saying, no used clothing to Africa, you're ruining the textile industries in Africa, you should not be sending your clothes there. And that sounds right, you know, if you don't look at the economics, you don't look at the facts. It sounds right. It's like, okay, yes, you have all these people in the West who are dumping their clothes in Africa. That's affecting the economies and affecting their manufacturing industries. It sounds right, but it isn't. So I wrote something about that because in East Africa, the government is actually trying to ban used clothing from outside, but they don't realize how much it actually affects women who are the ones who sell the clothing, the ones who actually take the clothing and make new outfits from it. So it's like there's an entire entrepreneurial industry around used clothing that they didn't really even think about. So I wrote about that, but I did have them in my article. And so it was published in Kenya in print as well as online, and they put my email address on there. So so I did get people emailing me, calling me an ignorant person, and you know that was awful. But you know that was a mistake on my part, but also missing that, and also like not fact checking me enough. So all you just have to do is to be humble. And the editor saying, oh, so somebody called me out on this particular interview. This is the correction. Can you update it? It's not hard. It sucks to be called names via email. It sucks. Somebody actually wrote a response to a letter to the editor calling me ignorant. So you know that wasn't nice, but you just have to like suck it up and also just be more careful in the future. So you know now I make sure that as far as I can, as far as humanly possible, and also getting other editors to look at it to make sure that there aren't too many mistakes and it's good to go. So hope that helps.
Yeah, I would also just want to add that kind of from an editor's perspective, I've been involved in professional editing for about 6 years now, and I think that you have to be remarkably humble and aware of your limitations. I think we're all humans, we all make mistakes, and it's hard, it's important to keep that even if you've developed kind of a certain expertise of that. So for instance, kind of procedurally at Young Voices, almost all of our articles, both Stacy and I will edit. Even the articles that Stacy and I read, we pass along to each other, because I think there's something, I mean, this is almost kind of like a knowledge problem thing, joke about hi, but insert high joke here, but about like cognitively humans, like we can just gloss over sentences and not see our own mistakes or whatnot. So I think it's important. That's another thing, especially with editing, is to always have a second person look it over and whatnot. I've made plenty of mistakes. In a former job, I was director of communications at Students for Liberty. So I've sent out emails probably in your inbox from a year ago with with several different typos. But usually the types of mistakes like that, when they can usually be avoidable if you make sure to always get a second opinion, to have someone take a second look at your writing. So that's very important. Is even if you think you're an expert, it's always valuable to get a second opinion. Yes, other questions? Yeah, how about you?
Hello, I'm Mike Licato, and I'm a conservative/libertarian and a software analyst living in New York. Now, I was a government major in college, and I'm used to being able to talk about politics all the time, but I'm curious, now that I'm no longer in college, what opportunities exist for the amateur speaker in the city who doesn't have a career in the liberty movement but wants to discuss ideas, to speak on political topics without going through the process of making it a career. In New York, you see comedy open mics, you see poetry open mics, but I'm wondering, is there a political open mic or a place where I can go to just debate someone on a national issue? I've made my first really serious attempt at a YouTube channel in the past month or so, which I'm going to shamelessly promote in the style of entrepreneurship, called Culture Pass. But what I really want to do is speak in person, because I think that is where we connect with people, and that's something that I really love and enjoy doing. So I'm curious if anyone knows of any opportunities to do that.
Yes, well, I'm going to take the moderator's privilege here and give you an answer. Toastmasters is a fabulous organization. They are one of the oldest, actually, fun fact, one of the oldest nonprofits in the US, I think. They are a speech-giving club that are in cities large and small, all over the country. And they have basically small groups where it's all about improving public speaking. They have a whole program. They have a 10-point program. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous though, but that's a common Toastmasters joke, is that, oh yeah, we also have a 10-point program. Where every week there's a small gathering. Usually Toastmasters clubs are about 20 people, 20 to 30 people, and you give a speech in front, you give a public speech, usually 5 to 7 minutes. And it's a very thorough program where they evaluate you on your speech. You're evaluated by your peers, and they'll even do things like they'll time you. You'll have they have an counter, literally someone who counts all the ums. Which as a Toastmasters member, I'm going crazy right now because I'm like umming like crazy. And they also have a grammarian where they even look for improper uses of English. So if you use a word incorrectly. So I would say, in terms of if you're looking to meet up with other people and improve your public speaking, Toastmasters is definitely the great place to go. It's been a wonder for me personally, kind of becoming more comfortable speaking in person, and I'm sure there's probably one in your city. Any other advice? No? Man, I'm hung in the microphone now. I need to. All right, other question? Yes, in the back.
Hey guys. So my question is for people who produce on multiple outlets. Personally, I both write and do personal YouTube commentary. So for those who do that, I find myself often like kind of holding back like my opinions on one outlet because I don't want to lose access to another. Like because my presentation style on both are quite different because I'm talking to pretty different audiences. So do you guys have any advice on coping with that distinction between between just being completely honest through your own personal brand and also realizing that you're trying to not say anything too controversial on one outlet in fear of losing access to another?
Good question. Any takers?
I think it's okay to have multiple voices. I think when I write articles, I tend to be more serious and more facts and stats, whereas YouTube, one of the things that's great about it is that you can have more of a personality, you can do crazy things and be sarcastic. Obviously, when you're being sarcastic in writing, sometimes it doesn't work so well. So I think it's okay to have multiple voices because I think people have different preferences. Some people prefer to read articles and some people like to watch videos. So I don't think it's a problem to have different voices and just, people say, oh, well, like, some people say they like my writing better than my videos, and that's fine because it's different. So I don't think it's really a problem.
Okay, cool. We got time for one or two more questions. Anyone else? Yes, right in the back.
Hi, thank you guys for being here for all the advice on op-eds. However, for those of us that are more involved in narrative works, how would you recommend getting the ideals of liberty across and being taken seriously in an increasingly left-wing industry such as the film industry?
Good question. Narrative. Anyone?
I guess when I write op-eds, I tailor it towards the left but I'm still doing libertarian arguments. I think as libertarians, a lot of people try to they're more from the right, I would say, and where they origin from. So they talk like rightists, they don't talk like leftists. I came from the left, so I understand how the left works. Like the LGBT one, obviously criticizing Hillary is pretty ballsy, especially when you get a lot of hate comments. But when you make arguments, you gotta address it in a way that makes sense to them. Obviously, saying that this person supports regimes that kill gay people is a pretty appealing thing to the left. Or like with GMOs, I take it from an environmental standpoint, not so much like a capitalism standpoint, like different things like help actually improve the environment, and leftists have been actually destroying those GMOs and making them unmarketable, and that's actually hurting the environment. So I guess just tailoring it from like things they care about instead of what you think they should care about, if that makes sense.
That's a tough question, and I'm not sure, maybe in terms of narrative work in the film industry, none of us really do that much. Fortunately, there are a bunch of great organizations in the Liberty Movement who have been successful in more narrative type work. Specifically, there's a number of organizations like Free Think Media, the Moving Pictures Institute. John Popola specifically is the CEO of that, and he's made a number of documentaries from a pro-liberty perspective that are respected kind of mainstream. He's at tons of different film festivals all the time. A lot of organizations as well. The Institute for Justice is by far kind of the standard beacon of communications, best communication shops in the Liberty Movement, where they really create these compelling narrative videos about people who have been victim to government. Just really finding compelling people who are not just, kind of going back to avoiding the L word or whatnot, not coming at you from a purely political perspective, but just telling their story. So I think that there's a number of great organizations in the Liberty Movement who have really used the power of narrative and using people's stories to really spread the ideas of liberty without being overtly political. So I would say look into those. I think we have time for one quick question, so this will be the last one. Anyone? Oh, yes.
Hi, my name is Mason. My question is for Julie specifically. As someone who's had an established brand for quite some time, and with social media being a constantly evolving landscape, do you have a technique for monitoring or maintaining your audience and growing your audience beyond just trial and error? Like, for example, as scrolling to people posting videos directly to Facebook rather than having them on YouTube, so they fit that Facebook's algorithm so that people see them in the feed. Or is that like in the last year how Snap has lost to Instagram because Instagram implemented new features?
Okay, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to give it right to Julie.
Sure, how to grow your audience, I guess the question.
No, do you have something beyond trial and error that you, as a technique to hold and grow your audience as social media evolves?
Sure, so one of the things you kind of mentioned it is that I've been posting more videos directly on Facebook because it shows up on people's feeds. Unfortunately, Facebook has a thing against YouTube links where they want people to watch videos on Facebook, which sucks because you don't get any money when you post directly on Facebook, but you get a lot more views. I've had a couple videos go over 1 million views just on Facebook, so that helps bring in new people. How to grow my audience, I try not to piss off my current audience, which sometimes is hard. You were kind of talking about the whole leftist thing. Well, I kind of have the thing where I have a lot of Trump supporters on my page. So I have to be careful because, of course, I want to criticize Trump when he does bad, but I also don't want to lose these people. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this? So I try to criticize the ideas of Trump. I don't say, Trump is stupid. Because I'm going to get a lot of hate, a lot of people unfriending me or whatever, unfollowing me. So I kind of like, okay, this is what's wrong with tariffs. I don't directly say Trump. I don't put Trump in there. So that's why some libertarians say, you don't criticize Trump enough. Yes, I do. I criticize his ideas because I want people to stay because I want them to become more liberty-minded, the Trump supporters. So that's kind of the balance that I try to do on Facebook.
Great, thank you so much. This has been Young Voices panel, how to jumpstart your career as a libertarian writer. Check us out on our website for more information, youngvoicesadvocates.com. We got a few handouts floating around, including one, our campus pundit program, how to get rewarded for your writing. We're giving out small commissions for those of you who walked in, for giving awards for students to successfully place their op-eds in their student newspaper. So ask me about that afterwards if you're interested. I think we might be chilling around here for a few minutes, so feel free to come up and say hi, and thank you so much.